Hi, I'm Kirk Degiorgio, artist, producer, DJ, label owner, and welcome to my studio here in Ipswich, Suffolk, mostly based around modular systems, and got a brand new Ableton Live 9. What I'm going to do is just show you how I go about starting tracks and various mixing and various other techniques that I have, sound sculpting, etc. So enjoy. I've got two self-contained systems set up at the moment. Now this one is my chord machine, and it's basically, it starts off with this sync gen which syncs to the door Ableton here, and you don't need any kind of special DC equipped interface. It's just plug in and play. The software does it all for you. This is the sync gen software here, and you've got a kind of software based song builder and sequencer that you can get into as well, but I just use it quite basically actually as a regular clock. And what I do with the clock is I take regular, I think it's either 8th notes or 16th notes, can't remember exactly which, sorry, just resetting something, and I send it to this strange module here, this V-Gates. And what this V-Gates does, you can either have it in digital or analog mode, and I've got it in digital mode, and it's basically just running as a basic 8-stage step sequencer. So what I want it to do, it's dividing the clock signal even further, so I can just get it to trigger a chord once every bar or every 2 bars, depending on how I've got it set up. And what it does, it triggers this envelope here, which that's normal to that. This is a dual Vactral shaper. It shapes envelopes using Vactrals. It's a positronic transient gate, but it also has VCAs built in, so you can send one of the envelopes as a regular envelope into your filter to modulate your filter, and you put the audio into this VCA and it will internally trigger that and shape that. Now the sound source is this Snazzy Effects drone bank, which it's not CVable at all. It's just you tune each individual outputs, 5 triangle waves basically, individual outs, and I've got each individual out going into a mixer here, so I've got individual mixer control over each output, which just gives me finer control over chords. I can make the bass notes stronger or accentuate one of the inner notes of the chord. And obviously that output's going into the filter here, so if I just solo this, if I turn this down, you should be able to hear the chord. And I'll solo it here. So it's like a chime. It's going for a bandpass filter. Now you'll hear, I don't know if you can hear that, but the Vactral, because it's Vactral based, it has a kind of ringing, and as it slowly closes, you get like a nice distorted kind of tail to the envelope, and that's why it's made Vactrals, basically, to give it that kind of unique sound. So if I was to put it through a low pass filter, you can hear it. and I can take away that bass. Just have 2 notes. So it's like for dub techno, you can just tune it to the key of the song, and obviously you can then record it into the DAW and add a delay to it, or you can modulate it various other ways. So that's my chord machine basically. And I don't have to have it synced to the DAW. I've got this Pro Modular clock module here, which is a free running clock source. It's great for live use if you don't want to use a laptop, and that's your BPM there, and you can open the trigger length from trigger to gate, so you can alter the width of the pulse, and stop and start. So that's a great little module, and it's going to come with an expander very soon where you can CV the actual BPM rate, which will be quite mad for live use, so looking forward to getting that as well. Now the other sound I've got here is this kind of acid type sound. And until I get my final oscillator in, this will be a self-contained synth voice here. I've patched in this dual prismatic oscillator from Make Noise, and this is a classic kind of Buchla West Coast style dual oscillator where you have, I generally use it, an output from one side, and then I use the other oscillator in LFO mode to modulate the sound. If I take the output here, I've got this fantastic little oscilloscope module. You can see how the wave shapes can change. You've got various angle, shape, you can fold, you can get pretty much wild sounds out of this. Or you can use a regular square wave. There's a sine wave out as well. And that's going into an emulation of the Korg MS-10, not the MS-20, but the earlier MS-10. This is from Manhattan Analog MA35, and it has both the filter and the VCA from the Korg MS-10. And this whole synth voice here is pretty much controlled by this IntelliGel Quadra, which just has 4 transient generators, attack and decay, or rise and fall, whatever you want to choose. And they have, you can put those in cycle mode, so they can either be basic AD envelopes to open the filter and your VCA, or you can have them as LFOs. I've got 2 of them in LFO mode. They're modulating that filter as well. And there, that final output's going into another IntelliGel module, the Azimuth 2, which is their dual VCA with various panning features and a stereo super width feature. So it's a really nice, clean, high quality VCA. This is maths here, and this is basically dual transient generator. So you've got a rise and fall, so you can do sort of, you know, like a portamento, like 303 style effects. Or I just trigger them and use those as AD envelopes, pretty much. And then you've got this add and subtract bit here. I really like these attenuators because when you send an envelope out, usually, you know, you just have to send it at whatever voltage it comes out at. But here you can, you know, adjust to have a strong envelope. It's great for using filters that haven't got an attenuator. You can just attenuate it from here. But that's pretty, so utility is pretty indispensable actually. It can cycle as an LFO as well. It can be so many different things. Same as these mod mixers as well. They can be ring modulators, VCAs, or just 2-channel mixers for CV or audio. these are those Rebel technology. They're basically kind of clock dividers and sequencers, but that's only going through half of it really. And these utility modules here again, that takes gates and takes them all and outputs them as one. So you can take all these different triggering things here and get some really crazy rhythms by combining them all together. And this is just a basic a multi. I use a lot of multiples, as you can see. I've got a buffered multi there. CV. This modulation orgy is quite a complex module. I use it as a complex LFO, and you can choose different wave shapes of the LFO, but you can it also gives a clock out, and you can CV, you can distort the waveform, and you can change the waveform. It's an LFO, but it's the most complex LFO you can get pretty much. The oscilloscope, the Dave Jones O tool, because even though it's a bit of an outlay for something that doesn't actually contribute to the sound, it's an incredible learning tool and troubleshooting tool. I haven't had any major issues with any of these modules, but I don't think the manufacturers or Eurorack in general will object to me saying that the modules are a bit quirky, and there are some that don't perhaps work as they should. I don't know if that's a limitation of the format, of the voltage or whatever, but you can come across things and they might not work as expected, and this is a great troubleshooting tool. I've sent some examples of the it shows, obviously it shows the waveform, but if you change the modes you can see two waveforms at once, and if you want to get stoned and to put it in XY mode, you can create some nice pretty patterns. But yeah, and it also shows your dB levels, and it's got a spectrum analyzer. That's the XY mode. You've got a frequency tuner, so you can tune your oscillators without having to get a guitar tuner, and it'll give you the voltage outputs, which is very useful because some of these the triggers and gates and envelopes, they give out totally different voltages to each other. There's no real standard. It's one of the quirks of the Eurorack system, that it grew very organically, and there was no sort of fixed standards, and so it's a bit all over the place voltage wise, but this is what I'd recommend. And that's pretty much two modular sounds in this track. So quickly thrown together, and let's add some beats, and there you go. What I'll do is I'll export all this audio. Once I've got a basic arrangement, I export it all at 96K into Logic, and then I'll mix in Logic. I just prefer the metering, something about the sound which we've discussed, which is quite interesting. I just prefer the sound of Logic when I'm mixing, and so I'll bring it all over to there. Okay, so you can hear the quality is a lot better now. This is that same track brought over into Logic. This is where I do all the mixing.
Is the modular still being triggered?
No, that's what I will do. I'll just export them as stems and then just do all the mixing here. Generally, I put an EQ on each track and get rid of any of the low end that's not necessary, and then I'll put a compressor, and the compressor that I prefer to use is this Fab filter, the Pro C, and what I do, I get a lot of the like there's Ableton Live emulations here, and what I do, I get a lot of the other software compressors on demo or buy them or whatever, and I will, if I like the presets, I'll then recreate them in Pro C. I just find Pro C's system, the way they, you know, the visuals of it, it's just a real workhorse compressor. It's interesting, Ableton have kind of adopted this screen, haven't they, for their new compressor. Because I used Pro Tools for years, there's one of the compression settings that a lot of the hip hop guys used to use for their kick drums, I use all the time. I've recreated it on here. You'll see Pro Tools emulations, and it's this kick thump. I use that on all my kick drums. If I bypass it. It's just a perfect kick drum compressor. I'll use that on pretty much every kick. And something that I've really got into lately, and I'm still experimenting with, is the whole non-linear summing. And when I export everything over from Ableton, I have a template. I might as well show you the blank template here. Right, my template. So I'll have a template set up as an EMI TG console at 96K. So this is the template that I work from, and I'll just drag all these stems in here. If you go into the mixer, you'll see I've got a non-linear summer channel on each one set to the EMI TG console, and I've used the EMI TG console to mix to record the drums for the last two Beauty Room albums, so I know what they sound like, and I prefer them to the Neve. There we go. That's the SSL, isn't it? Yeah, and that's the EMI. So you can adjust the drive, and I'll lower the output and bring in the harmonic distortion using the drive. So there'll be one of those on every track. So basically I've set it up like an EMI console, and I find that it adds about 5–10% more power for me. It really does work. And I'll bounce all the drums down at the end of when I'm pretty much ready, and the synths down to these submixes here. And two of my favourite compressors again are Waves. This compressor is the Pi emulation, and for drums it's so powerful, and it brings the high end up and just adds a lot of energy to the drums. And for the synths, I have this Kramer master tape emulator, and I have a love-hate relationship with this emulation. On the master, I just cannot find the sweet spot for it, but if you just run synths without any beats, I think it's because it's an emulation of I think it's a 1950s unit, a late 50s or maybe early 60s, and it just doesn't seem to be able to cope with techno beats for some reason. Or maybe I just haven't used it and I'm using it wrong or something. I haven't used it enough yet. But running synths through it is beautiful, especially if you put the wow and flutter quite high. You get a real kind of, adds even more of that analog kind of non-linearity. So I'm really experimenting with the Kramer sort of Waves plugins at the moment. Now the other plugin you'll see on almost every channel is another secret weapon, I like to call it, is the Melder Productions Dynamic EQ. And yeah, it does everything. It's a great sort of tool as well because it's got sonogram analyzers and everything as well. So I put one of those on every track. It's got great, look at the filters, you know, you can high pass filter up to 120 dB per octave, which is just insane. So real sort of brutal filters for cleaning up the bottom end, and haven't yet got a favoured 64-bit reverb plugin. I'm waiting for, is it Breeze or B2 from the Camel Audio guys. I'm hoping that will do the trick, or maybe the new classic reverbs from Native Instruments. But yeah, that's the weak thing for me so far, is software reverbs in 64-bit. This is the mix once. This is what I aim for before I do the final bounce. Is I have a kick and bass separate, so because I find that is the tracks that usually have to be adjusted the most at the mastering stage. So I'll keep those, so I've got some control over them. But all the drums except for the kick, I will bounce down into a submix. And all the synths, except for the bass, I will bounce down into a submix. So this has got the Kramer on it, so if I bypass it, you'll hear and then with. And you see it's only really tickling the needle there. It's only doing like 1 dB of gain reduction. Listen to the difference. It's adding excitement and bringing up the top end as well. So I love that. And for the synth submix, I've chosen the Native Instruments very compare, very slow very mu bass compressor. This is just a gently tweaked preset. Just add some ambience to it. You'll hear it closes up, and then it's bringing up a lot of the reverb and stuff. It's just adding an ambience, exactly what you want. That's what the preset says. So it closes down again. Yeah, what I'm generally looking for, because obviously a lot of the dynamic control is done at source drum machines. You don't really need to compress them. It's all for effect and shaping transients rather than controlling peaks. And that's what I generally why I use compression, more as an effect rather than controlling stuff. So for bass, I've got a hard bass one, which is actually the Logic hard bass setting, and I've converted it to the Pro C again, just because I prefer the metering. And the side chain there, you'll see is, if I unhide all the rest of the tracks, I always have a kick hidden there to side chain everything by. So you can see the side chain kicking in there. And the kick, that would have been to save CPU. I would have processed that kick quite a lot, and then just bounced it internally to get rid of the all the effects on it. Even with this 12-core Mac, it still runs out of CPU sometimes. On the final output here, again, this is one of the mixes I've done using the EMI non-linear summing bus. So it's got a nice bit of drive on it. And this is I've actually put it on the master there. Still not sure about this. I love the to use it as a tape delay though. That sounds beautiful. I need to experiment with this a lot more. It's actually working on this track. This is why it's there, I guess. But two of the plugins that are recent that I love are both saturation plugins. Saturn is fantastic. If I solo the kick. For Techno, it's just perfect. I mean, that's just a preset there, but it's got all different types: tube, tape, amp, emulations. And the other one that's just come out that I love is this Native Instruments one. Driver. It's a lot more brutal. Yeah, that's even without any, that's just it initialized. You hear the difference there. It's not just a good sort of guitar effect. It's perfect for techno. So yeah, I've been experimenting with those sort of heavy distortion saturation a lot recently, but generally my music's not very distorted, so it's all very subtle. And I do know some producers are even using that fab filter Saturn on the final mix bus as a gentle tape warming, so yeah, it's very versatile. This is a great tool. Another free plugin, the Nivo filter from Alicia. Just sometimes, you know, you'll have something EQ'd right, but you just need to readdress the tilt of it. So this, you choose a center frequency and you can tilt it so the bottom's higher or the other way around. That's great for fixing things really easily. And again, it's free, so just because it's free doesn't mean it's not high quality. It's amazing quality. I use the alpha compressor as well, which is very, very fully featured compressor. This is very high quality. And this is another nice compressor. It's a bit more rough and ready, this one. But that's quality-wise, it's not up with the others, but it's more of a you know, sort of rough and ready tool actually.
Do you ever use any of Logic's built-in effects?
I'm using the reverb at the moment, but no, hardly ever. I don't use their sort of synths either, the built-in stuff. I must say, this is a fantastic reverb actually, and it's so CPU light that you can use it on individual tracks. It's based on late 70s or early 80s. You can choose which colour you want, 80s or 70s. I can't remember exactly what it's emulating. I think it's like the lexicon, early 80s lexicons. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, this is fantastic. Another favourite of mine. This is effects. There's one in particular that I love using. Let me try it on these synths. It adds like a ghostly ambience to everything. If I solo the synths, and what I'll do, I'll make it completely wet and record a completely wet take of it, and then mix it back in, and because it mangles it so much there's no phasing or anything. I think it's this one. Let me find it. There we go. So I'll make it completely wet. And that's the original. And then I'll just mix that into the final mix very much in the background, and it adds like this ghostly ambience. And mix wise, I really like sounds that you don't put them very noticeable in the mix, but they are, if you take them away then it's noticeable. I love doing that that's my sort of aim for reverb and ambient sort of washes like this. So that's by PSP. It's called N2O, and yeah, that's a great. It's like having a kind of, you know, eventide rack. Everything's modulation based in there. You can do tons of different things. I think they're my main favourites actually. I usually have the kick in the track before the bass, and I don't have a template of sounds. I will just sculpt for a new kick drum for every track. So I'll layer kick drums and then come up with one. Now, depending if that's a subby or a knocky or a very thin kick drum, I'll decide which one I want to sit where. So if it's a subby kick, then I'll filter out the bottom of the bass and make room for it, and vice versa. That's how I decide, pretty much. Yeah, rather than use the machine's onboard factory sounds, what I've got here, if I want to make a kick drum, I'll take a selection here. I've got Gold Baby Samples, great sample production company. I think they're from New Zealand, are they? And I'll just drag in a few into here and just audition them. That one's a nice one, so I'll just use that one. Reset, reset, get rid of those, and then just adjust the volume. Okay, and then what I'll do is generally just drag that into an audio track. And then I can get rid of machine, and that will just be the the guideline for the track. And go to Fab Filter. I generally don't compress in here, but I'll show you how that thump compressor sounds in here. Kick thump. See, it gets rid of the real subby end and it just makes it more powerful. And then I'll start layering it. I'll start layering that kick drum to make it a bit more interesting. So here I've got audio spillages, drum spillage, and okay. Load a kit here. Okay, let's choose this. Okay, so okay. Just paint in a simple 4x4 thing here. Okay, and then what I'll do is balance them. So you got the knock, woody kind of sound of the second kick, but still got the pump and the power of the first kick. And then I'll create a new audio track, route those. Okay, make sure it's not clipping, and okay, and then I'll see if it's, I'm very particular about the transients, so I'll make this the one there, and I'll warp from there, and I'll make this just a 2-bar loop, and get rid of those, and this will be the new kick. And I'll keep doing that. I'll keep layering and choosing different sounds, and maybe adding, you know, a bit of high end, and that's how I create a different kick drum for each sound. But that's I don't have a set of kicks that I immediately go to. I like to try and sculpt them and see. It sometimes dictates the track in a weird kind of way, but I'll always start off with a kick, and then I'll start basing the rest of the track around this. So if I create an insert track here and take that modular sort of sound here, I just, there you go. Okay, just a 4-bar loop. And again, this will be interesting to see how close it is timing wise. See, there's a little bit of a delay there. It's not too bad. So as it's quite a rhythmic sound, I'll just quantize it. Sometimes it can affect the sound detrimentally to do that, but this should be fine. Done something weird to it. I'll fine tune that just to make sure that it hasn't recognized some of the transients. Like it's put them in there slightly delayed there. So but then I'll start messing with the envelopes. So if I just want that little riff there, and you know how Ableton goes, you can just carry on forever now.